Welcome to Song Sessions, and I'm your host, David Pomerantz, and our guest today is one of the most prolific and respected songwriters in the world today, or any day. He and his songs have earned 3 Grammy Awards, 2 Golden Globes, 6 Oscar nominations, including the Oscar-winning Best Song and Grammy-winning Best Song of the Year, Evergreen from A Star Is Born. He was nominated for an Emmy Award twice and has written scores of hits that we all love, like We've Only Just Begun, Rainy Days and Mondays, just an old-fashioned love song, The Rainbow Connection from the Muppet Movie, and You and Me Against the World, and a cajillion more. He is deservedly an inductee into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. We'll add one little thing, too, because it gives some context to this guy. He's a fascinating man. He's an accomplished actor, and he's a producer and activist. And if that's not enough, for the last 12 years, in his spare time, he has served as president of ASCAP, the American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers, which, in addition to collecting and paying writers their hard-earned performance royalties, also helps to protect their legal rights in Washington, D.C., which is something he's very passionate about, and we thank him for that. Anyway, he's a good man and a true artist, ladies and gentlemen. I am so happy to have with us today the extraordinary Paul Williams.
Who is equally happy to be here and right back at you. I send the same complimentary assessment of who you are and who you've been. It's a pleasure to be sitting down to talk to you, David.
Thank you, Paul. Thank
you. Neither one of us is carrying a backpack or a suitcase. So
yeah, we were just saying that last time we saw each other, we're in an airport, and we said, hey, how was this?
It was one of those over the shoulders. I love your work too.
What do you do to see you? Oh my God! You're out in LA now. I mean, the ASCAP stuff
I live in LA. My brother left me his place when he passed. He left me his place in Taos, New Mexico. So I, basically for the last 14 months, I've been sitting here in my little townhouse, looking at the lagoon, and I'm grateful for my health and all, but got an advanced case of cabin fever. I must admit, I was constantly living on airplanes, traveling mostly for ASCAP. And, it's interesting. If we'd spoken probably 15 months ago, I wouldn't be speaking actually English. I would be speaking itinerary. People would ask me, how have you been? And I would say, well, I was in Dublin, and then I had to get to DC and whatever. But now when people say, how are you feeling? And I say, fine, and very grateful. Thank you. Very
nice. Are you writing? Aside from doing the business stuff, I
actually just have at this point just getting ready to start doing some table reads and the like with a new musical called Fortunate Sons that I wrote with 2 wonderful book writers, Mark Matnick and Eric Cohen, and it's about the televised draft lottery of 1969. Really excited about it. Almost always writing these days.
Oh, so happy to hear that. When you were a kid, growing up in Omaha, what music did you hear? Was it in the house? Was it on the radio? And what was it?
Well, first of all, I was a construction brat, so I moved all the time. The one constant in my life was probably singing in the car as we moved from place. I went to 9 schools by the time I was in the 9th grade. My dad was a construction engineer, but I graduated from high school in 1958, and I didn't discover rock and roll until I was about, until I started listening to the Beatles. The music that I just loved has basically always been the Great American Songbook.
Wow.
When I was maybe 11 or 12, I went to see a movie with my mom and my aunt. And it was a movie that my mom and my aunt would want to see, and you would never guess that it would capture me. But it was a movie called With a Song in My Heart about Jane Froman. It starred Susan Hayward. Mm-hmm. And I just went, first of all, I think I had my first full tilt crush at about 11 of Susan Hayward. I went, oh my God. And, I think I fell in love with music. I fell in love with the drama around the presentation of it. I fell in love with great character actors like Thelma Ritter. I think that I fell in love with music. And certainly film. I've always wanted to act from the very beginning.
Wow.
Yeah. When I
Wow.
talk about my career as a songwriter, I say that I've done really well for an out of work actor. I'm nothing but gratitude. I believe that generosity and gratitude are fuel. And I've experienced tons of generosity from the world around me. And it's left me a really grateful man. Probably the most important occurrence in my life is that 31 years ago, I woke up instead of coming to, I got sober. And when I got sober at 49, the career I thought I had been gone for like 10 years. And what I was given from the recovering community and the organization that I don't mention by name, because that's one of our traditions, what I was given was an opportunity to find out how, if you live in love and service, what you get back is beyond your imaginings. So everything just got easier. Everything got easier.
Interesting. Was that a function of your attention being more off yourself and more on other people? Was that the idea for you?
Exactly. And I still remain one of my favorite subjects.
Yeah.
Every now and then I skim down and bounce. So I touch health now and then, complete, mental health, never. I just, I mean, I have an ego, a big ego, and I think that's probably why it took me till I was 49 to get sober. I called a doctor in a blackout. I can't even claim this awakening myself in a blackout. Some force, reached out and said, here, pick up the phone, tell the doctor you want to get sober. Because the next day I was like, when the doctor called me, I was like, what are you talking about? Somebody's been using my body again. What's going on? But then I had that moment of clarity, and
Wow.
Alcoholism runs in the Williams family. I had two brothers who have both passed away at this point. They were highly accomplished, but they both drank alcoholically. Our dad was a mess. All of us got sober. My brother and both my older brother and younger brother got sober and had full, wonderful lives. And
Wow.
I'm sure my younger brother, Mentor Williams, who wrote and created, produced Drift Away.
Drift
Give
Away.
me the Beatles.
Yes, he did. Yes, he
Yeah.
did. Great writer. Great writer. Well, thank you for sharing that with me and with all of us. But it's fascinating to me. Whatever we go through, whatever you went through, you persisted and created an enormous effect with your career.
I appreciate it. And my take is that, I mean, I love writing songs. I love making movies, writing songs. As you say, an artist, you're an artist as well. But dancing with the one that brung me. I'm a songwriter. I'm an American songwriter. And what happened? I have this odd thing and it happens to a bunch of us, that when I hear da dee doo da dee da, I hear words. I mean, I'm not sure just why it is, but it's like, I mean, I hear this is the sort of thing that would get you locked up if you were attuned to that kind of thing, where you, within the structure of a melody, you hear words. I can walk by my fountain and think I hear words just
Wow.
within the changing dynamic of the sound of the water and all. You'd wind up burned at the stake if you said that.
In other times.
But the fact is that I've always loved that mysterious thing about hearing music and connecting immediately. It's like there's an equal sign. I hear that, and there's an equal sign that goes to equals this in the center of my chest.
Mm-hmm.
I hear Vincent, da da dee dee dee, and then you add those words in the center of my chest. I go, oh my God. And that Starry Night when no hope was up. It's like the perfect combination of lyric and melody to just knock me down. One of my two favorite songs. The other one, Someone to Watch Over Me.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yum, yum.
An anthem. So I write them myself. I love them,
Yeah.
But here's what I would say that is a slightly different take on the whole deal for me. I believe it's all a gift, I believe that my willing, I think I'm trying to remember who it is that said that to do the work, you just got to get in the chair and stay there. That was never a punishment for me. Getting in the chair, there was an obsession because I loved it so much. And a big part of my life right now at ASCAP is maintaining through our advocacy at ASCAP to make sure that you can have make a living sitting in that seat, that you become properly compensated for the amazing work you do. We've never needed music more than we need it right now. The longer I'm alive, and it's been 80 years so far, I'll be 81 in September. But at this point, it's just, you know, I look back at some of the stuff that I wrote alone or with Roger Nichols or Kenny Asher or the wonderful people, or more recently with Daft Punk or Portugal the Man, the people I write with now. It's all a gift. I mean, it's just all a gift. I put my name on it when I write words and music, and that's the only name that's on the sheet music, but there ought to be other names on there.
No, I understand. Yeah. The Lord thy God would be on every copyright. But here's the thing. So if you hear this, you hear a lyric or you hear impressions of lyrics at the water fountain or whatever it is, and you're pulling that in. When it's time to sit down, whether it's on assignment or whether it's because you said so, which is actually the same thing, when you do sweat, and when you sweat, yes, you love it, but it's a function of sticking in there and being willing to have a lot of crap come out, yes? Not that it's so for you. I don't know what it is for me.
No, it's interesting because the fact is, when I sweat, I don't get the job done. When I play at it instead of work at it is when it happens. There are a couple elements that will kind of put the screech on either the writing of the song or the success of the song. One is I am going to write something magnificent and I've got to have it done in such and such a day, and that kind of tension, somebody once said, don't squeeze the kitty. I don't remember who said it, but you squeeze the kitty jumps out of your arms. It's like a metaphor for standing on the hose. You're not going to be able to make the garden grow with that refreshing water if you're standing on the hose.
Right.
And I've got to write something better than I've ever written. Oh my God. And I have to have it done on. There are two elements. One is actually not bad for me because I've renamed it. There's a wonderful composer named Richard Bellis who pointed out, when I told him, I said, it's interesting. The way I'm working lately is, and maybe it's the way I've always worked but didn't recognize it, is I will look at what I'm supposed to write. And then I leave it alone. But my unconscious doesn't. My unconscious does not leave it alone. My unconscious is up there working its little butt off, evidently, because when I look at the calendar and I go, oh, Jesus, it's the 21st. Then I sit down, it pours out of me. And it's like the best example I can give it to somebody that's not a creative writer. I think we're all creative, but somebody who does not face this kind of creativity and the like. I would describe the way the work is done is like trying to remember a name. You're washing the dishes, or you're standing next to your wife in the kitchen, or you're driving along and you're telling a story. One of my favorite movies of all time is How Green Is My Valley, because there's that scene where Click, well, what's his name? And he plays the Reverend. You come to a grinding halt, and you go, well, screw it, and you forget about it. Later on, you're in the shower, or in the middle of the night, you turn to your wife and say, Walter Pidgeon. I go, what? Walter Pidgeon. He played the preacher, and it's in How Green Was My Valley, whatever. And so what happened? While you were not thinking about it, while you were totally absent, therefore consciously absent, therefore not getting in the way, your unconscious dealt with going through the what we used to call index cards, going and the Rolodex, going, what the hell was his name? What the hell was it? Walter Pidgeon, and says,
trust yourself is the message. Trust
absolutely.
yourself. Know it's going to happen. And boy, that's a great lesson for every young songwriter. I think that's the most important thing, is to understand. And the first thing you said is like know what you want to say.
Yeah.
And then trust. Okay. Now there's that other matter of, I know Bacharach was talking about one day about sticking in there, like you say it's a joy for you, and sticking through the pianistically where you compose as well. So when you get the tune and it's like ugh.
How do you spell?
You see and 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 it's just but the trust is the point. So you say, "Look, I am me, and I've done this a million times, and I'm connected, and I'm a being, and
Yeah.
this is going to happen."
Yeah, there's an expression I use. I don't know how to do this, but something inside me does. I wrote a book with my friend Tracy Jackson called Gratitude and Trust, and
Hmm.
there's affirmations, and that's one of the affirmations that actually came from my minister, and I give him credit in the book. But there's so great relief in that. I don't know how to do this, but something inside me does. To have that kind of trust that you've shown up. The classic example of that would be of the people I've worked with would be Jim Henson.
Hmm.
Because Jim Henson, I think, not only did he trust his decisions, but once he'd ask you to do something for him, he trusted you to make the right choices as well. The Muppet
Hmm.
movie, when Kenny and I sat down to write the songs for the Muppet movie, I told Jim Henson, "We'll play you the songs along the way because I don't want to surprise you. This is a big deal. We don't want to get off in the wrong direction." He said, "Oh, Paul, I'll hear it in the studio."
Ah.
What did you just say? I
Oh,
said,
wow.
record them. And I went like, that's amazing. Incidentally, in the 12-second delay, it was Annie Lamott who said, "Stay in the seat,
Oh.
get in the seat, stay there." A wonderful, wonderful writer,
Mm.
a great person and a friend.
Mm-mm. Just stick in there. Well, that's
Yes.
extraordinary about Mr. Henson. When you first started at A&M as a recording artist and as a staff writer there, and then fast forward to all those years later, and there's Mr. Henson in the same lot. That must have been pretty thrilling. I just want to go back. This is way back machine music. Are you ready? And we're gonna put an effect on it. We're gonna go. Okay.
I bet you love it.
You love acting, theater, the Great American Songbook, and have this interest in writing lyrics. Music too, right off, or was it lyrics right off?
Well, I was acting in a movie called The Chase. I was like 24, 25, whatever.
Hmm?
It was the second big movie that I'd been in, and they were only 2 years apart. I was having a tough time getting cast in movies, but I got cast as a teenager in a movie called The Chase.
Hmm.
Marlon Brando, Robert Redford, Jane
Sure.
Fonda, Robert Duvall, this spectacular cast. And
Yeah.
for months we're shooting at night. And I've got, I think, maybe 3 lines in the movie by the time it's over, but they were always developing this story with the 4 teenagers and at the cutting room floor is where most of what we did wound up. But the guy I shared a dressing room with was named Mark Seaton. And he had a beautiful guitar, and I picked it up, and he went, "That's a Martin. Be careful with that." I went, "Oh, I don't want to break something that I can't afford to pay for." So I went out and I bought a little guitar, and I used to doodle. I'd sit on the
Hmm.
steps of the motor home, watching Marlon Brando and all these people, that were leads in this. And there was a scene where Robert Redford was hiding in a junkyard, a convict, an escaped convict,
Yeah.
and the teenagers had just set fire the junkyard. And his name was Bubba. And just on I don't even know what the chords are called, but I kind of find a thing and I go, "Bubba, Bubba, Bubba, come out wherever you are, or we're going to come in and get you. Yes, we're going to come in." And Robert Duvall is walking by. And he said, "What is that?" And I said, "It's a guitar. I just bought it." He said, "No, no, not the guitar. What were you singing?" And I said, and I thought I was in trouble. "You're not supposed to sing on a movie set or something." I just
Wow.
made it up. I just made it up, Mr. Duvall. And he said, "Come with me." And he walked me over to Arthur Penn, the director. He said, "Show him." I said, "It's the guitar." He said, "Not the guitar. Show him the song." And I sang it for him, and he went, "Stand over here by the barbed wire, light the fire, bring the camera around, shoot it." He shot it. It's in the movie.
Huh.
It's as if it was what I call a billboard, just a straight ahead billboard.
Huh.
You're trying to make a living as an actor. You accidentally make up something on the set, and it's in the movie.
Oh, my Lord.
2 years later, I caught on, and well, I never really put it all together. But 2 years later, I started writing songs.
Oh, that's crazy.
But, this I still to this day I say that I've been done really well for an out of work actor. There was the point in telling that story may reappear in 12 seconds, but the fact is, I started out just kind of writing with my own. I didn't have any money. I was kind of my own therapy. Just get out there what you're feeling, and and I just wrote by myself until I met a couple guys that I collaborated with, and it was an immediate sense of, wow, this is a place to learn about this stuff. This is a place to do this with guys like Roger Nichols. When I was signed at A&M. Before that, I wrote with a guy named Biff Rose. We wrote a song called "Fill Your Heart,"
Yep,
which was
you did.
recorded by Tiny Tim, and it was the B-side of "Tiptoe Through the Tulips,"
Yeah.
and it got played, as almost as much as "Tiptoe." I mean, an absolute accident. And I'm like, do I really want to write for Tiny? I love Tiny. He was a sweetheart, but
Yeah, but then David Bowie cut the tune, right?
David Bowie cut it. It was the first outside tune he ever recorded on
There you go.
the Hunky Dory album, and that's
Yeah.
like, you can't plan. Talk about, if you want evidence that to just live in acceptance and trust and plan on the phone to ring, plan on the miracles and all, because I couldn't have chosen any of this. I mean, I showed up where had the opportunity to do a little work in the life. But again, one more time, David, it's all a gift. In my opinion, it's all a gift.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow we get led to the places where we need to be.
Oh,
Lead me where you need me is my morning prayer. Lead me
oh,
where you need me.
oh, that's so beautiful and so good, so true.
And
But you found these particular guys. When you found Roger Nichols, who is one of my favorite composers, and
wonderful.
so here's my question for you, Monsieur. So when you write with Roger Nichols and Kenny Asher and those boys, is it lyrics first? Set this, please, or they give you a melody that knocks you out? How's it usually gone?
It's different with everybody, and especially these days when writing with sometimes with a band that is just, let's color as much as possible outside the lines. I love that. When I started writing my little 3-chord, little bit of very unsophisticated songs on guitar. I'm not a musician. I mean, I don't play an instrument, at least to that extent that I'm not. Roger Nichols, when I met Roger, he gave me a melody. When I actually, the day that I met him, I took it home and wrote lyrics that night. And in our entire career of writing, he always wrote the music first, and he didn't really see any reason to add a note here or there if I wanted one. Even he would say, "You know what? It's really nice like this. Think another couple minutes." I'd think another couple minutes and find it. But when
Huh.
would play me da da dee da da ba dee da da, I heard talking to myself and feeling old. That's the way we worked.
Lovely.
Kenny and I was much more of a kind of a spontaneous arriving upon music and lyrics at the same time. And I would say
Interesting.
that with Kenny, I wrote 80% of the lyrics and 20% of the music, and vice versa with him. Although, I mean, if we took time to divide up and who's having which idea,
Sure.
all I know is that it was when I wrote with Kenny Asher, he brought, and with Roger, that was my music school. Though they were my music teachers,
Boy, oh
you know,
boy. But then
and it's,
again, you wrote your own great melodies. You wrote "Old Fashioned Love Song"
yeah, thank
by
you.
yourself.
I think the probably one of the things that I'm most proud about it is the stuff that I did alone. Also for Henson. I mean, the Muppet Christmas Carol. The
Oh,
hardest part for me is finding the chords. There's magic in the air this evening, magic in the air. The world is I hear the words and music at the same time,
right.
but to write it for somebody else to hear, I will go to my music director, Chris Caswell, and I will go, Cas, there is when a cold wind blows, it chills you to the bone. But there's nothing in nature that freezes your heart like years of being alone. It paints you with indifferent. What the hell is that? I cannot find that chord. What is it? And he'll go, boom. I'll go, Jesus, you're fast. What is it? He said, it's a D. I go, what? It's not easy. a D.
Is that a diminished augmented 7?
Yeah, but no, it's just
Wow.
a D, and you can't find it. It's
Oh, that's
amazing, and I think that, Jimmy Webb's a great friend, and God, I love Jimmy's writing. And Jimmy said, if you had any training, you would never have done half the things you did that I really like.
mm,
So
oh
it's
boy.
again, it's sometimes when the education isn't there, just the pure longing to say something in this weird way kind of manages to get done, and somehow it works. If you play
Yeah.
a mistake, it's like a drummer. If you play the wrong fill twice, it's brilliant.
Yeah. That's incredible. Yes. When you went through that period of time, well, you wrote Someday Man, which you did on your first album, and then for the Monkees, which was a cool record. I like your
Yeah,
version. I like your version better, but
you're
then
in the will. You're in the will.
okay, thank you very much. I was hoping you'd say that. And then look, so here we go back in the Wayback Machine, but this is worth it, you guys. No, and I want to get Paul's take on this. 1971, your album, Just an Old-Fashioned Love Song. Now, it's got That's Enough for Me on it, which you wrote the music to, which is a gorgeous song. Well,
Oh,
that's enough for me. That's all that I need
that's all the
be.
hero I
Oh,
need to
whew,
be.
beautiful thing.
Oh my God, I love that that you care for that.
Love that.
That's what I call a heart payment. When somebody
It's
you really admire, that you haven't really talked about, reaches into your past and pulls something that was meaningful to me and didn't really get any attention at the time. I just thank you. That means that's meaningful.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's
Yeah.
and that's a yearning song, that one, and music and lyrics, and it just pulls it right out. But then, sorry to say, Paul, you had about 9,000 hits on that album. So, we've only just begun was on that album. Some people have heard how it was written. Do you mind telling it again, or how
No,
it
not
came to
at
be, and
all.
how Richard Carpenter found it? Because this is fascinating, guys. Go ahead, Paul, please.
Well, I was writing with Roger, and we were all over, B-sides and album cuts. We were constantly on. We had amazing success, but nothing on the radio.
Hmm.
We didn't think we were ever going to hear our songs on the radio. We wrote songs that were recorded by so many people as a B-side. I had the B-side of Delta Dawn. I had the B-side of I Am Woman. I had the B-side, right down the line. But we weren't getting the A-side cuts.
Hmm.
And I really want, because I was such an obvious rock and roller, white light and black leather, it's like, I mean, I wrote, we wrote very kind of what was at the time what we called easy listening, middle of the road songs.
Hmm.
And I think there was part of me that yearned to kind of get a little more hard. My favorite band at the time was the original Delaney and Bonnie and Friends.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, that's where I wanted to, and that just isn't what came out of me. I'd sit down and intend to be Leon Russell, but the job was already taken, and so Paul Williams would write something. Uh, but Roger was great friends with a wonderful lyricist named Tony Asher. Tony Asher wrote "God Only Knows What I'd Be Without You," the lyric
Whew.
to Brian Wilson's beautiful anthem.
That's right.
So Tony called Roger and he said, "Look, I was asked to write this song for a commercial for a bank, and it's going to be a little different. There's no pitch or anything from the bank. It's just going to show a young couple getting married, the kiss, riding off into the sunset, and everything. And at the end, it says you've got a long way to go. We'd like to help you get there at the Crocker Bank." And Tony had a skiing accident and he broke his hand. He said, "I broke my hand." He said, "It's the hand I write with.
Huh.
I'm in pain. I'm taking pain pills. I just can't do this right now." And I recommended you and Paul, which is very kind. Thank you, Tony Asher.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to write a bank commercial. Come on. I mean, come on. Yeah, come on. Let's, Roger said,
I'm getting B sides, man.
yeah,
Why
yeah,
would I
yeah.
want to do that?
Roger just said there's a fee for writing it. And I went, let's write this commercial. Let's write this probably.
Ding.
And we wrote the song. We kind of jury rigged a couple of the verses together and added a third verse. So just in case anybody wanted to have a B-side or an album cut written by the two of us. And we never, and I sang it on the commercial. Roger and I both sang it, but I sang the lead on the commercial, and that was we thought it was done, and it was done until we get a phone call from Richard, who says, "I just saw this commercial, and I think I recognized Paul's voice. Is there a full version of that song?"
Ah,
And we would if there wasn't, we would have said yes and had it done by the next day.
sure. Of course, I ride a horse.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So exactly. And anybody that's auditioned for a movie, of course I roller skate. Of course I can ride a horse.
Yeah. So you got busy and did it, right?
Well, the fact is that it was sung by an angel. This was not. We've only just begun. Was I don't think was a hit song at all. I
Huh.
think that it was sung by an angel and touched something in everybody. It certainly did. It was not at the time. The number one album was, I think, Inagata Davida. You can't get any further away from Inagata Davida, and
Truth.
we've only just begun. But it touched people's hearts, and she could sing anything, and it was just. It was like air. It was like a box of emotions in a batch of tunes when she sang a song, and just I've never said that before, but it's a fair description of what it was like to have
My
Tracy
gosh.
Carpenter sing one of your songs.
My gosh. Well, you had her sing several of your songs, but it's interesting on that one too. That that's a perfect song for her voice when you really
Yeah.
look at it and where it was, the key they put it in. It only just begun to live. Tweet, tweet, tweet. Is it, you're
Feel
right.
free to
Angel,
record
angel is the right word.
that. Jump in there and record that puppy, David.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, yeah, and it just, and she was just, playful and kind and all those
Mm,
good,
mm.
just as good as it gets to
Hmm.
walk in the studio. And I remember them calling Roger and I and say, "You want to hear Rainy Days and Mondays?" We trotted down our steps across the lot and went into the studio and went. And yet you hear that and you just go, God, how did you get this lucky? And the other thing that's interesting is that nobody knew who Roger Nichols and Paul Williams were when
Mm.
they arrived at A&M Records.
Huh.
And when Chuck Kay, our publisher, introduced Roger and I to Richard and Karen, they went, "I love your cut on the Peppermint Trolley album. We really like the one the Drifter, the Steve." Wait a minute, somebody that knows our work. So this was a gift
Oh my
on
God.
a to
Well,
levels. Yeah,
and Richard, I thought was a great producer.
I mean, listen to the production, listening to the arrangements, the amazing use of stacked voices. I mean, just and
Yeah.
yeah. So thank you, Richard. Thank you from me and from my kids and my grandkids and the education that your expertise paid for
Mm.
my family. I really appreciate it.
Yes, we thank him for sure. Rainy Days and Mondays is a gorgeous, gorgeous thing. And these are songs that were on your albums, kind of originally, maybe with the exception of "We Only Just Begun." Yeah,
Well, also Rainy Days and Mondays. I wrote. I
that was on your
finished
album.
Rainy Days and Mondays. Actually, when we wrote it, we thought it was like well, we'd played it for Chuck Kay, and we hadn't even gotten to the third verse. And he said, "Hold on a second." He stopped. He called Bones Howe. He said, "We'll be right over." So Bones Howe was producing, I think, The Fifth Dimension. And I get in the back seat of Bones's or Chuck's car. Roger's up front. He's the adult in the triad, and we hit on over to Bones. And I write a missing line in the third verse as a fill line, just to have something to sing there. I wrote, "What I've got they used to call the blues," as a fill line. It became
Ah,
my favorite line.
ah,
It
yeah.
was a huge lesson there. You need a line, boom, you write something without thinking about it. Because I wanted to mention the blues, but it was so hackneyed to mention the blues. So
Mm.
I went, "What I've got they used to call the blues," and it was like I wasn't even there when it was written. I wrote it down, but I wasn't even there. I'm like going, "Oh my God, Bones Howe! I've never met Bones Howe. Wow!" And
Yeah. Yeah, he was one
yeah,
of the kings back then. Well, he did all the Fifth Dimension stuff
yeah.
and way more. Yeah.
But I don't remember what happened with Bones. Something happened that it may have not been what he was looking for, which is been known to happen too. But thank God the Carpenters, you know.
Yeah, beautiful record. Beautiful. You know, on your first album, just an old-fashioned love song, which everybody knows and loves, of course. Uh, but there's another song on there that's one of my favorite songs from you and from Roger Nichols. It's "Let Me Be the One." And if anybody knows this song, this is how you're going to know it. And I'm gonna sing just two lines. Let me be the one you run to. Let me be the one you come to when you need someone to turn to. Let
Wow.
me be
Yeah.
the one. And that's a classic. I mean, you guys, that's a hit song. When you finish that song, I know, just personal question. I know the others were big hits. That was also kind of that was a hit too with the Carpenters and Johnny Rivers too, right?
You know
Which I
what?
love that record.
It was moderate with God. Who's there were a couple wonderful recordings of it. Uh, but yeah, it was that always felt like it should have been a really big hit, and
Yeah.
sometimes you just can't call them. You know, some sleepless night. If you should find yourself alone, let me be the one you run to. Let me be the one you come to when you need someone to turn to. Let me be the one. I mean, it's just that melody is just, you know,
Yeah.
I'm not sure you can write a bad lyric to that melody. It's so
Yeah.
moving. If you write what you feel, you're going to have write
Yeah,
that, you
yeah,
know.
but your lyric skips along on that thing so beautifully. So
Thank
it's just beautiful, beautiful, and the uh, the renditions of that are gorgeous as well. You know, it was interesting. I was looking at those albums and kind of preparing for this. I was just reminding myself of all of this beautiful work, and there's one on the that album, Old Fashioned Love Song album, called "Waking Up Alone," which you wrote by yourself. And I was what impacted me was that it's an interesting structure. It's different because it's got three or four hooks, like an Ed Sheeran song has now. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's
yeah,
got
I
a
do.
it's got a it goes and then it goes and then it you think, well, that's it, and then it goes, and then the payoff chorus hits like
Yeah,
a minute
yeah.
and 20 in or something. But it's perfect just like that. It's lovely.
You know what, I sometimes refer to this song, which was, I think, probably my only single that ever charted really as in anything that looked like it was headed up the charts. I made it up, to, you know, not anywhere near the top, but at least the top 30 or something.
Hmm.
But I use it as an example of lyric writing. That what I love is that you stay okay. If I may, we've only or let me just do it. I took my chances on a one-way ticket home,
Hmm.
growing tired of strangers and the kind of life I'd known. Thought the time for settling down had come at last. Guess I hope to find my future in the past. It establishes the situation. He's going home, you know, and there's somebody back there. Walk with me, darling, where the wheat fields used to be. Okay, it's somebody, and we've now meeting her. I will tell you stories of my times across the sea. You're the legendary girl I left behind. Can't begin to count the times you crossed my mind. And then the bridge. And oh, you children, why the youngest looks just like you. Oh, that's a heartbreaking moment, I think. The story jumps to a place where you least expected it to go. You have already, in the two verses, built up an expectation of finding your future there, and it's too late. But oh, your children, why the youngest looks just like you. The picture of of their mother, but there'll never be another quite like you. You're an angel in a time that I don't know anymore. And so good
Right.
night. I'll take my memories to bed. Know that I'll be waking up alone. Takes that till then to get to the title, but
Right.
I should have noticed that the years were slipping by. Still, you're just as lovely as the day we said goodbye, like an old familiar poem that still won't rhyme. I could
Mhm.
get back to the place, but not the time. That's the bumper sticker, almost edge of wisdom that you get to in the song. It's one of
Hmm.
my favorite. Again, like with That's Enough for Me, it's one of my favorite songs I've ever had the pleasure of having passed through me. To find that and to share that. Yeah, again, David, you really it touches me and it moves me to hear you find you that you mentioned those specific songs, and I can't
Good.
say it any clearer than that.
Well, it's beautiful and unique. That's a unique structure. So you you write these incredible things, and then you put out another album, and then you got more hits in that next album. And it's one of my favorite Paul Williams songs, "You and Me Against the World." That's
Kenny Asher.
with Kenny Asher. That's a gorgeous thing. Rainy Days and Mondays was on that. Now, and Out in the Country, Three Dog Night record. That's a cool record. That's a cool
I had,
record.
I had three with them, and they all three that they recorded they weren't sure about, but the Richie Podler, their producer, said you should just put it on the album, see what happens. They were all three singles: "Family of Man," "Out in the Country," and "Old Fashioned Love Song." They were very
Right.
good to me. And Chuck Negron is still a friend, and
Mm.
there are two things I'm intensely passionate about. One is recovery, and one is music creators' rights.
Hmm.
And Chuck Negron is a great. When we met, we were both just a mess. We were both, having way too much fun, and he has become a wonderful, wonderful advocate for recovery and just a really remarkable man. I love Chuck Negron.
Mm. Wow. Incredible. Well, talk about the songwriters' rights thing while we're here. Um, First of all, let me ask you a bold question, okay? Because you're Mr. ASCAP. And, well, ASCAP is another subject which is close to my heart as well. But the question is this: why can't we unionize as songwriters? Why?
Don't know.
We keep trying. And who's turning us down? What's going on there?
Well, I don't have a quick answer for that and all. I know that I have the opportunity to change when necessary, and when it's advantageous to us. We have the opportunity to go up on the hill and sit down. And I have plunged into both sides of the aisle, and found willing advocates and good listeners on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah.
And so, I have to tell you, David, in some ways, my focus has always been on what we can do, not what we can't.
Right.
And, and it's exhausting explaining things you know nothing about. It's dangerous to begin forming a path towards something when you really don't, that's not your area where you can make the change or make the difference.
Yeah, I
I know
understand.
that I back up to the place where I'm absolutely secure of what I'm talking about. And
Yeah.
what I'm absolutely secure I'm talking about is that things began to change with Napster. Things began to change with streaming and all. And somewhere the true value of the music that you write and the songwriters and composers
Right.
out there in the world, that are working to feed their families and put gas in the car,
Hmm.
we have to put down, below anything close to the true value of music, and
Right.
with notches here and there and there, and the brilliance of somebody like Beth Matthews, who's the CEO of ASCAP, and John Tita, who's head of
Sure.
membership, and
Yeah.
all the
Great.
people that got together across the industry
Yeah.
to make a difference with the Music Monetization Act. What we hadn't done before, we had again and again and again all gone to the Hill and said, hold on, and kind of shove everybody out of the way and go, this is what ASCAP's 100 years old. You just say about ASCAP's 140 years old. But what I heard on the Hill again and again, and a lot of us heard again and again, was come to us as an industry.
Sure.
Come to us as an industry, and
Mm.
let us actually try to create something that moves everybody forward. Let's deal
Mm.
with the mechanical license and getting people properly paid for that with the MLC and all.
Sure.
So
Sure.
if I stay back here going, you know what, let's just keep doing this and try to maintain a real sense of the holy work that songwriting can be in
Mm.
the middle of a pandemic when you just are falling apart with not understanding how this could happen.
Yeah.
Somebody writes a song and you hear it, You take a deep breath, and you can then grab your kids, put your arms around your kids, and so when I walk in the room and I talk to a senator or a congresswoman,
Yeah.
I say to, I talk to them about what I do as a dad, and they respond as a mom as well as a senator, as a granddad, as well as a congressman. Uh, and
I understand.
it's the
You got
greatest
to.
honor I've ever had in my life.
Oh, it's gorgeous. There's nobody better. I appreciate so much you're doing what you're doing on our behalf. For those of you who don't know about ASCAP and BMI and other organizations that collect the royalties for songwriters and publishers, but there's more to it because there's a history with ASCAP that's, as you say, 150. Is it 150?
Well, no, it's 100, like it was,
Whatever. It's
1914, so it's 106.
106 years old, and it's the boys.
100,
It's
107.
it's Victor Herbert. It's George Gershwin. It's Irving Berlin.
Cole
It's
Porter.
the top Cole Porter, and those
Larry
those
Hart.
great, and Larry Hart. Yes, just a
Yeah.
few. The guys you see in the pictures up at the ASCAP office, sitting around tables and eating chicken and things, and they pose. And it's a privilege, I would think, for you to be part of that tradition and to be one of those people. I mean, you are, and deservedly so. But I'm sure it's a great humbling experience to be for you
My
to be
God,
part of that.
every now and then I'll post a picture on my Instagram, like, standing with my arm around, you know, Marcus Miller and Desmond Child, and, or sitting down. You understand that when I joined the board in 2001, Marilyn Brugman was president and chairman of the board, and it was like, I mean, talk about a couple of lyricists you can learn from, Marilyn and Alan Bergman and the like.
Yes, that's
But
right.
I've also had a real respect and major great gratitude around publishers. A&M Records, Chuck Case. I arrived at A&M in a stolen car and got a career and a life and the like.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was Sammy Kahn that said, I'd had my first hit, We've Only Just Begun at BMI. And he said, you really ought to be over at ASCAP. Some of your songs aren't that bad, so they may last and it might be the right place for you. So the other thing that
Thank you,
I
Sammy.
would say is this, David, is that in the peak of my career in the 70s, the first peak, because it's kind of gone like this,
Yeah.
I'm having a pretty good third act. But the 70s and for sure the 80s, because I misplaced a decade in the 80s. But back in the 70s I was all about loving the music and getting it done. I was not an advocate for anybody more than myself.
Sure.
And after I got sober, I mean, I really, really woke up, and I woke up to what ASCAP had done for me. That ASCAP, when I moved over to ASCAP, they had kept me shiny side up when I was not really paying attention. And so my advice to your creative audience is become advocates. As to quote a great line, your music, your future. A guy named Joel Beckerman, who had been on the ASCAP board, did a great service by making everybody aware that do you really want to honor a buyout? Do you really want to sell? What would have happened if Charlie Fox and I had sold? We didn't think that the Love Boat was going to be a big success, so we could have just sold it, gotten a nice, tasty buyout. But what would have happened then for 11 years? Little something going in the bank to help me take care of my family.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I'm really proud of ASCAP's writing point on advocacy, but I also have to say we've got our arms linked with the many elements of the rest of the industry, including BMI, because Mike O'Neill's a terrific man, and we're working hard to stay transparent, clean up our copyrights between each other, so there's not 110% being paid. Wait a minute, let's figure it out. That incidentally is part of the team that Beth Matthews leads, and pretty impressive.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you for doing that, Paul. That's just awesome.
You bet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I appreciate it. You're a good leader for us. Um, so back to the Wayback Machine, and the purpose for the Wayback Machine is the work never dies. The work does not get old, and that's why it doesn't matter if we're talking about 1974 or 1994 or 2024.
Yeah.
It's if it works, it works. So you write this song called "I Won't Last a Day Without You" with Roger, and it's genius. And you had a big hit with Anne Murray, of course. And here's the lyric, guys, in the chorus. You know it, but I want you to hear it. When there's no getting over that rainbow, when my smallest of dreams won't come true, I can take all the madness the world has to give, but I won't last a day without you. Yikes.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
yikes. Was that a yikes for you when you
Well, I
finished that
think
one?
at this point I look at it and I go that, if I would say that I won't last a day without you works as, as a, obviously I've referred to it as years as the classic codependent anthem. It's like not really a healthy thought. I won't last a day without you. You're in trouble then if she walks away. But but if you think about it spiritually and all, that there's that connection and all. And at this point in my life, I would have to say that it was for the people that love what we do, for the David Pomerantz fans who find a song of yours that nobody else paid attention to, and they show it to somebody else, and they show it to somebody else, and they play it for somebody else. That song is alive today, not only because you created it, or the songs that Roger and I, or whatever combination, created, but because the people that listen to your music and listen to mine, have taken upon themselves to share something meaningful to them that we may have been involved in with other people. And that's something I never even thought about before. But at this point in my life, I think about it and I am beyond grateful. There's a movie I made that nobody went to called Phantom of the Paradise. Was a big hit in two places, Paris and Winnipeg. Winnipeg. And in Winnipeg, these people loved it. There wasn't a lot to do in Winnipeg, evidently, and all these mid-teenagers or whatever loved Phantom of the Paradise. And while the world walked away and had paid no attention to it, they would show it to friends. You got to see this movie, and it started rippled out. And in Paris, two guys that loved movies met 20 times at Phantom of the Paradise screenings in Paris, and they saw those the helmet that the Phantom wore, and they maybe got an idea for that. Years later, I stood on stage with those two guys, and we accepted the Oscar, or rather the Grammy, for Album of the Year. I'm talking about Daft Punk. So that moment was a gift of all those fans of the music that I never got. You get it?
Wow.
You get it?
Yeah. So that when they were kids, they were listening to the Phantom of the Paradise, and they were fans of, and Daft Punk calls you and stuff. That's a cool record, by the way. It's Daft Punk. It's that's awesome. I have a note about that. It's so
I had
incredibly
Beyond.
cool.
I wrote the lyrics to Beyond, and I wrote Touch, which I sang on the album.
Touch.
Yeah.
It's very
Touch.
good, and your performance won a Grammy, yeah, for vocal performance.
As well
And
as
I
yeah,
gonna,
thank you. Yeah, with some great talent like Pharrell, and Niles. It's just, there's some great talent on there, and it was again, the phone rang. The phone rang. I didn't go chasing. So it's a gift from the people that loved something in 1974.
fascinating. How did you meet Brian De Palma? Did he call you out of the blue and say, write my score and be in it? Or did your agent get that? How did that happen?
Well, A&M hired a guy named Michael Arciega to kind of represent the A&M's music for film. It was, so he wound up getting, I don't know I guess he reached out to Brian De Palma and said, let's talk about all these A&M artists and writers for your. And I have to tell you, there was probably, based on what I had been writing there was probably no worse choice in the world for somebody to write the music for Phantom of the Paradise than me. It was the music of the Spheres. It was hard rock and roll,
Right.
and you know. But we met, and he saw something, and first he asked me to write the songs, so I wrote the songs, and then he had saw this kind of little sort of he said there's almost like a Phil Spector-ish kind of a control thing that I see that could be, so I wound up playing Swan in it, but
Mm-mm-mm.
it's a great opportunity to satirize all these different kinds of music, and create one that hadn't been heard yet, supposedly.
Right. Right. So, oh, that's interesting. So, so Phil Spector was your model for that character for Swan?
Not my model. I think it's what Brian saw as he's
Oh, I
described
see.
it at the time.
Oh, I see. That had some great songs in it. The thing that tickles me is your song "The Hell of It," which is you singing on it's a very very interesting score. Everybody, Phantom of the Paradise as a score, and it's Paul writing straight on and a little bit sideways. It's sideways, and music and lyrics, and it's great. And Old Souls is a really cool, interesting song. Minor key, very, very beautiful thing. So you're writing scores, music and lyrics for dramatic pieces. You're an actor. This has got to be a very exciting time for you. So first you've got that Paradise, and now you've got Bugsy Malone with the great
Yeah,
Alan Parker directing.
yeah.
So did you feel with Bugsy, if I may say, uh, the the score of Bugsy is terrific, and it's very Broadway-esque. And I know you guys did a version of it for the stage,
Yeah, it's still running.
but
Yeah, well,
it's
kids
that
do it all
good.
over,
Go ahead.
especially in England. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
that good.
wanted to, yeah, it was just, I mean, first of all, this is a story that Ellen Parker told his kids at bedtime. He made it up every night. He'd add a little something to it. So at the very beginnings of this whole process is a father's love for his kids. How can you miss? It's like,
Ah,
it's just, and Alan was raised on American films, and just as I was a big fan of that genre, the gangster film genre, Warner Brothers stars, the John Garfield and Edward G. Robinson and Bogart and all that world. Now you've got a bunch of kids dressed up playing that with shooting guns that shoot not bullets but custard,
yeah,
like throwing a
it's a
pie
great
in
idea.
somebody's face. There's actually a line in there where one of the gang members is holding up a custom a pie, a cream pie, and he goes, "Hey," gets one of these guys to stand against the wall, and he throws the pie, and the guy ducks. He said, "How am I supposed to compete with a gun that shoots custard? Even somebody as dumb as Knuckles can avoid it." So it's a really unusual thing. I've never ever written down to kids, and I think a lot of that, was how and why Jim Henson and I later on connected as well as we did. But this was a chance to satirize, so and to philosophize and kind of get out my this is a wise old man lyricist writing some of those lyrics
Hmm.
uh, that are in a way at this point my philosophy of life. You give a little love and it all comes back to you. You know you're going to be remembered for the things that you say and do. Uh, we could have been anything that we wanted to be, and it's not too late to change. There's all that kind of stuff in there.
Yeah,
But then there's Ordinary Fool,
yeah.
which
Ordinary
I wrote
Fool.
as a spin-off of something that Ella Fitzgerald or Mel Torme might do, and which incidentally, the payoff for me was that they both recorded it.
They did.
I mean,
Yes, they
what
did.
a
Yeah,
kick.
it's a beautiful, beautiful old genre song, but a new song and a gorgeous song. You've got, and one of the, I'll say really quickly, in Bugsy Malone, So You Want to Be a Boxer is a great song. The rhythm is awesome. And again, everybody, check these films out and listen to the score because
Thank
and this one in particular is really Broadway worthy to me lyrically and musically. It's really adventurous. Um, And then you did a lot of acting. This show is not so much about that, but I can't just skip over that because you did a lot of acting and good acting in the 70s and 80s, and even recently, you did the Cheap Detective is one of my favorite with Neil
Thank
Simon
you. Oh,
and
Peter Falk, so much fun, yeah. And
mm,
2 years on Goliath with Billy Bob Thornton in the
mm,
last 2 years. So talk
wonderful.
about getting acting lessons, you know.
Mm,
Working with Billy Bob is like, oh my God.
how beautiful is that? Well, okay. So then we're talking about A Star Is Born. So after Bugsy Malone, my question for you is, well, again, this is the question I always have because I'm always wondering when someone's going to call me to do to do A Star Is Born. But how did you get it? Did Barbra Streisand had she recorded your songs before, and did you know her?
I didn't know her, but she had recorded I Never Had It So Good. She recorded, I think I Won't Last a Day Without You,
Oh,
a couple songs. And you know, you mentioned You and Me Against the World earlier. I had a hit with You and Me Against the World with Kenny and I, with Helen Reddy.
yeah.
And Barbara reached out and she basically said that uh, there's a song at the end that I find that John Norman Howard has written, and uh, and I sing it at the end of the movie as an honor to him. You know, Christopherson is John Norman Howard, and of course Barbara Streisand, you know, is the lead. Uh, uh, so what she said was, "I want you to write what song?" That's not what I heard. That's not what I heard. What happened is I was getting fitted for a tuxedo at the time, which was a very, it's not something that happens every day in a construction brat kid's life. When I'm being fitted for a tuxedo, my wife comes in and says, "It's Barbra Streisand" on the phone. I'm like, "Oh my God, it's Barbra Streisand." "Oh, hi, Barbara." So, the voice is showing nothing of what's going on, which is, "Don't be pinning anything down there right now. I'm bouncing around." But she told me what she wanted, and what I heard was, "I want you to write the songs for A Star Is Born." I'm sorry, that's what I heard. So she sent me a script, and when I went back in, the script is noted that, like, here's what I think the opening song should be about, and this is kind of what I'm picturing for this, and this is. And I went out to meet with them, Barbara and John Peters at her place in Malibu, and she was like, "This, what? You look at all this." She said, "Would you excuse us?" So I go out of the room, sit out in the dining room or somewhere. Well, and then she had asked me to come back in. She said, "You're not intimidated, are you?" And I said, "No, no, no. This is exciting," which is probably a total lie, or else I was just, and just, just took the edge off right before the meeting. But she said, "This is not what I asked you. What we asked you is to write this one song." And so we had a conversation. I said, "I'm sorry, I misunderstood." But she said, "No, it's good." She said, "It's good. You're not intimidated. You're diving in." I asked if I could bring Kenny Asher in because Kenny and I had written a musical based on Dorothy Parker. And I just, I thought, you know what, Kenny would be the perfect guy. He would provide the melodies that are just so elegant and way, way above what I thought I would write. Uh, she said, "That's a great idea." And so then just we sat down, and first thing we did was we looked at the earlier versions of A Star Is Born, and the one thing we pulled out of that was I love, and I told him one time, James Mason, I said, "I love this thing where you did it with Judy Garland in the earlier version, that that when you would always stop her when she was walking away and say, 'Hold on, I just want to take another look at you,'" you know. So Kenny and I wrote the first thing we wrote was the opening song, "Watch Closely Now," and then we wrote at the end, "With one more look at
Just
you."
one look at one look at.
Yeah,
Mm.
and but again, the accidents that sometimes the most brilliant things you do are total accidents, never occurred to you. When Kenny and I finished writing "With One More Look at You," at the very end, "I want one more look at you," we looked at each other and went, "Are you watching me now? Watch closely now." And we both started crying. The opening number fit perfectly at the end.
Oh,
So, which she did incidentally live for the film,
oh,
in close nose running and everything.
Oh,
Brilliant.
oh, my God. What did she hand you a lyric? Pardon me, her music for Evergreen. Did you sit in a room with her and write that together? How did that come about?
No, early on she said, "I want. I wrote a little something. Can I play it for you?" And she was just learning guitar, and it's interesting because she's going finds the next chord, ba da da dee da da, find the next chord, ba ba-da-da-dee-da-da-da, ba-ba-da-da-dee-da-da. You go, oh my God, this great melody. She's that's something. She was like a little girl. Is that something? What do you think? I said, that's your love theme. You know, and I think it was one of the last things I wrote because we didn't need it right away. And she would always say, where's my lyrics? And but yeah, it's a gorgeous melody. And
Oh,
you know, the,
yes.
and I thought with One More Look at You was going to be the song that would get attention until she sang Evergreen, and then I realized, this is, I'm forever grateful. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Barbara.
Yes, 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 yes. Well, guys did a beautiful, beautiful thing. So, okay, so Evergreen, you go up and you get your Oscar. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I think that's extraordinary. Well, is it a terrible question to ask? What was that like for you? Do you remember the moment where they called your name and you came?
Yeah. What you don't expect is what happens when you walk up to the stage and you turn around and you look at that audience and you go, there's Gregory Peck, there's Kirk Douglas, there's right down the line, just, the faces you were raised on to think that, oh my God, where do you get here?
Yeah.
And I think what I said was, I was going to thank all the little people. Then I remembered I am those little people, and they all laughed. And yeah, it's such a special moment. It's such a special moment. Incidentally, it came around again, for Gaga, and I loved that version of the movie. I thought we
The
had
new
a
one.
great musical version of it, but I have to tell you, I loved the last version of
Yeah,
A Star
me
Is
too.
Born.
Me too. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And Bradley Cooper did an amazing job directing that thing.
Oh my
I mean,
God,
get
yeah,
out of here. How do you
yeah.
do that?
And that moment when his brother, when he leans down in the truck and says, that it was you, whatever,
Mhm.
and that great looking back and
Uh,
power out of there on the pickup, because it's just almost too emotional to hear.
yeah.
I had a relationship with my brother, the songwriter as well, and we were at each other. We loved each other, but we were so competitive. And then he got sober. He was sober 12 years when he passed, and no, he was sober 14 years when he passed. And we had the same sobriety date, 12 years apart, and didn't know it. Didn't know it.
Oh my goodness
Got
gracious.
sober March 15th, 1990. Oh,
Mm.
19. I got sober March 15th, 1990. He got sober March 15th, 2002. And when we were both sober, we had the kind of loving relationship that what brothers are supposed to be.
Oh
So for me
Lord.
to watch that scene, it was so powerful.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
Incredible.
good stuff.
Good
Well, I have
stuff,
so
Paul.
much to be grateful for, you know.
The Muppet Movie, 1979, which won a Grammy for Best Children's Album and an Oscar nomination for Best Song. And the best song, of course, everyone knows is The Rainbow Connection, which was an enormous hit. And more than it being a hit, it's beloved by many artists and recorded in many artists of all kinds, from Willie Nelson to just so many people. And I want to just read a little bit of the lyric, no music, just the lyric. This is the last verse of the Rainbow Connection. And I always listen to this song and I say, well, that's a cute song. That's a nice song. Blah, 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 blah. And then I listened to it. I heard it. And here's what I heard. Have you been half asleep? Have you heard voices? I've heard them calling my name. I don't know if I can get through this. This is so beautiful. I've heard them calling my name. Is this the sweet sound that calls the young sailors? The voice may be one and the same. I've heard it too many times to ignore it. There's something that I'm supposed to be. Someday I'll find it. The rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. It's a beautiful thing you did there, my friend.
You know, you truly become brothers when you both cry at the same time.
Well, they call it the sweet sound that calls the young sailors, and it just goes down the time track of all time, and it's a gorgeous piece. And again, that movie, like your other movies, for which you wrote the score, even though you wrote just the lyrics, they're Broadway worthy. And as you say, you never talk down or write down to children, and all of those songs are very clever and are enjoyed by everyone. Never before, never again. I'm going to go back there someday. These are things that people, please take a look at this piece. Brand new time. I know you probably heard it when you were kids or whatever it was, and listen to this work. It's extraordinary.
That's so generous of you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's true.
Thank you. And it's my philosophy is in the lyrics. You know, who said that every wish would be heard and answered if wished on a morning star. Somebody thought of that and someone believed it. Look what it's done so far. The power of your intention, the power of the fact that thoughts become things is been a huge part of my expecting the best out of people in the world around me. And it's all happened again and again and again. Incidentally, a beautiful song, a gorgeous song, won the Oscar that year, not Rainbow Connection. The song that won that year was It Goes Like It Goes, Like the River Flows, and maybe what's good gets a little bit better, and maybe what's bad gets gone. Oh, come on.
Yeah, that's extraordinary. We just had David Shire on last week, and we talked about that song. Yeah, that's
fantastic. And talk about an Academy Award winning worthy performance in Sally Field is just
yeah. It's an extraordinary piece. So I want to just talk a little bit about your recent work. And when I say recent, it's really the last several years. But I pick it up with You're Gone. This is the Diamond Rio record that Paul wrote with John Vesner. Is that
wonderful writer. Wonderful.
Great writer. And I hope I'm going to embarrass you for a second and read some of this. So listen to this, you guys. And it's a cool melody too. Did you write the melody with John as well?
You know, I wrote it with John Vesner. We shared melody and lyrics.
Is that right? Anyway, I'll just read just a little bit of it. It's worth it. Okay. It starts like this. I said hello. I think I'm broken. And though I was only joking, it took me by surprise when you agreed. I was trying to be clever. For the life of me, I never would have guessed how far the simple truth would lead. You knew all my lines, you knew all my tricks, you knew how to heal that pain no medicine can fix. And the big chorus, and I bless the day I met you. I thank God that He let you lay beside me for a moment that lives on. And the good news is I'm better for the time we spent together, and the bad news is you're gone. It's just lovely, and it's a perfect. Tell me about your idea about perfect rhymes. What's your thought about it? Because you use them mostly.
I think the right word is more important than the rhyme, but I'm old school, and I sometimes I will stick with it until I find it. There's there should be a rhyme and there isn't. It's fine when it's meaningful.
Okay.
And I don't really have a rule of that. I think that when you learn to drive in the United States and you drive from the left-hand side and you go to Europe, you go to England and you try to get over on the other side. I haven't even tried that, because my instincts just would turn into the wrong lane. Writing, I have those habits, and also I'm more inclined to write a line to a word that rhymes than the other way around and all.
Sure.
You were talking about some, something that You're Gone as recent. There's a single coming out this month with a wonderful composer from Mexico named an artist named Noel Sheras, and we wrote a song called. Wait a minute, let me get this in front of you. It's called "Breathe Again,"
Ooh.
and I not in the interest of self promotion, but in the interest of every now and then you write a song that you makes you just scream thank you to the heavens for the talent that manages to find you and decides to walk into your life and say, you know what, let's do something together. I don't ask ASCAP writers to write with me. I don't. But a couple of them have asked me to write with them, and it's amazing experiences. Certainly, Portugal the Man, John Gorley at Portugal the Man, has become like a brother, and I love writing with him and all. This is one of the most meaningful recordings for me in a long, long time. That the Noel Sheras "Breathe Again,"
It's
and
a
it
beautiful
feels,
title. My goodness.
yeah, thank you. And when you hear this, and I have a feeling, David, you'll go and listen to it right away. But this is something that I'll send it to you if you'd like, and just make sure I have a cell number so I can text you this. But
Okay.
you can reach me out to me. But
Good.
I don't know if it's
find
appropriate
it.
for the conversation or not. But I just wanted you to hear this.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to it. So, last thing about your future projects and the stage things that you're going to do. You mentioned it a little bit earlier. Do you want to say anything more about them?
Well, Fortunate Sons, which is based on the two households that are incredibly affected by the 1969 draft lottery that was
Great
televised.
idea. Yes.
And the thing is, there are elements. There's a mixed race relationship that is very different to deal with in 1969 than I was going to say then in 2021. And then I remembered that in 2021 there are so many pieces of our lives that are as broken as they were then. And it's shocking to have to admit that, but it's true. There are issues around LGBTQ and things that I just assumed that by now we would be sailing over that being any issue around human rights and all. But so to embrace this project, Fortunate Sons, which deals with things that are just so that just seem so obviously as evolved as we are as people now. Of course, we have outgrown those problems. We haven't. So I approached this project. I read the script by Eric Cohen and Mark Madnick, and I went, it's just, the issues that are being dealt with, and incidentally, it's not another liberal, I'm a good Democrat, and I did everything I could to avoid the war in Vietnam. But one of the main characters, the head of a household, has an arm, part of his arm is missing. And we talk about his patriotism, and we talk about, the difference between those wars that came before and Vietnam and all. It's one of the most exciting things I've ever done. I also have a pretty much finished musical based on Pan's Labyrinth with Guillermo del Toro and Gustavo Santaolalla, who's a favorite writing partner these days. And as soon as Guillermo del Toro picks out a director, hopefully we'll have a date for people to start, lining up to see that. Pan's Labyrinth is an amazing fairy tale and a beautiful movie. And what Gustavo Santaolalla has written will break your heart. It's so beautiful, and to write those lyrics is a great honor.
Oh my goodness. Well, I can't wait to see, hear, and drink that beautiful thing that you're going to do.
Yay! I'll have a Diet Coke. It's safer.
Do you have any parting advice for our songwriter friends? I'm sure or advices perhaps. What would you like to tell them? Maybe along the lines too of what you said, not necessarily politically left and right, but what do we need to do here as a group of artists? What needs to be done?
become activists. Let me back it up one step from that.
Please say what you're going to say.
Creatively, God, the best advice I can ever give anybody is if it's what you feel, write it. Don't edit. The Hemingway they used to say, write drunk, edit sober. Your truth is probably a truth that's going to match up to millions of other people's truths, and you may not write it because you think it's too simple or too stupid or that was. Get rid of that voice. Trust yourself to just be as innocent or as cynical or as angry or as in love as you are, because it will transfer to an honest song, and an honest song will touch other people because we all feel all those things. And fight for your right to make a living doing what you do. Don't be angry, be active. Stay generous, stay grateful. And we need your music. I look forward to hearing all of you. Maybe I'll even wind up writing with one of you someday. When I'm 109 going, what? But yeah, dive in, care about what you do, and we'll keep working to make sure that you can raise your kids based on the work you're doing.
Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you for that. Thank you for you and your beautiful work, and for all that you are. We love and adore you, and that's the truth.
You have an industrial strength heart, and a really caring soul. There is nothing in this world that impresses me more than kindness, and you've moved to the top of my list this morning.
Oh,
thank you, David.
Paul. Thank you, my friend. All right, so there we have it. We really look forward to your new stuff and all the new stuff you're going to produce. So that wraps up another episode of Song Sessions. Be with us next time, and we'll explore the universe of yet another master songwriter. For all you hardworking artists out there, keep creating your beautiful things for us. This world needs you now more than ever. Keep going. Roll it, roll it, roll it. And as so many things Paul said that were so true. Until then, bye-bye for now. This is David Pomerantz, and I will see you again next time on Song Sessions. Bye-bye.
Very classy man, David Pomerantz.
Sir.